easiest way to answer that, instead of just saying, no, it doesn't change DNA, is to explain how the vaccines actually work so that everyone's on the same page about it. So in the US, there are currently 2 types of vaccines that are authorized for use against SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID-19 infection. There are mRNA vaccines, which stands for messenger ribonucleic acid. That's a form of genetic material that we have in our human bodies, but also many infections and viruses have. And then there are also inactivated virus vaccines, and that is the Johnson & Johnson Janssen combination vaccine. So for the mRNA vaccines, the 2 we have authorized are Pfizer and Moderna. And the way those vaccines work is the vaccine does not contain any part of virus whatsoever. It contains a very short sequence of genetic material, this mRNA, that can be used by our own muscle cells, where the vaccine is injected, to produce what's called the spike protein. The spike protein is on the outer part of the SARS-CoV-2 virus itself. So in giving the vaccine, encoding this small protein to our own bodies, we teach our bodies to make antibodies against this protein, so that if in the future we are exposed to the real virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus that is covered in those spike proteins, our body has already seen the spike protein, recognized it as a foreign protein, and created antibodies against the spike protein, and also created immune cells that are considered memory B and T cells that are prepared to launch a full-on attack against the spike protein in case we see it again. So that is how we have this kind of amazing immune response to the SARS-CoV-2 virus when then we're later exposed to it. The good thing is the vaccine itself contains this short sequence of mRNA, which never actually enters our nucleus where our genome is contained. It never interacts with our own DNA. It has no ability to alter our DNA, and it doesn't get incorporated in our DNA. It cannot change our genetic material in any way. When it enters the cell, the muscle cell, it goes directly to the protein-making machinery, which is called the ribosome. And it's translated from that genetic material into the spike protein. The spike protein is then presented on the outside of the muscle cells, and then it triggers our immune system reaction. And the spike protein is quickly degraded after the immune reaction is complete, and what's called a lipid nanoparticle is just what kind of stabilizes this genetic material so that it's allowed to enter into the muscle cells to begin with. That is also quickly degraded. So there's nothing that lasts or lingers in the human body after vaccination. All that lasts or lingers are our own antibodies that we've now created against the spike protein. Similarly, but in a slightly different way, the Johnson & Johnson or Janssen combination, they worked together, those 2 companies, vaccine, they used an inactivated form of adenovirus. Adenovirus is a completely unrelated virus to the SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19 infection. But this virus also encodes the genetic material for spike protein. So the end result is exactly the same as the mRNA vaccines, except that it's this inactivated virus that allows this short sequence of mRNA to enter into the cells and go right to the protein-making machinery. And the virus itself is incapable of replicating in the human body. It cannot make one sick. It also does not enter the human genome, cannot interact with our DNA or affect our own genetic material. So we are essentially preparing our bodies to attack the spike protein and remember it for future possible exposure to the virus.